Hey everyone, and welcome back to Let's Be Honest. Before I get started, I just want to let you know and be completely honest, well, that makes sense, that I have been sitting here recording, deleting this video. See, I probably would have deleted it right there and started over, but then I sat here and I realized, Jeanette, you still don't have the fancy lights set up. You still don't have the fancy background designed. So just do it the way you're doing it for now. Because nothing's fancy about this. It's honest. It's real. And quite frankly, you don't have the time right now to sit here and edit all this. And I'll tell you why that is, just so you know a little bit about me. On top of having a 9-to-5 job, which is more like an 8:30 to 8 job, if I'm lucky, I also have a side photography business that is picking up because COVID is slowing down. Fingers crossed it stays that way. And sincere thoughts out to anybody that's watching this that has been truly affected by COVID, and I mean that from the absolute bottom of my heart. But the reality is, the recording this, deleting it, recording it, deleting it isn't really necessary right now because A, I don't have the time at this moment to edit any of that. B, again, not a super pretty setup. And C, which is the most important, is I need to get these conversations out there, whether it be for me or for the people watching. These conversations need to be had, and delaying them because I don't have the pretty background or the pretty setup or don't have the time to edit them the way that I would like, and I am a perfectionist, I'll tell you that much, so even putting this out there is big for me. My therapist will probably be happy about that. But in short, I really just want to have these conversations. I want to try and get at least a weekly video out there, no matter how short, no matter how long, no matter how messy. So do me a favor, bear with me for the first couple months until I sort of get the hang of this. And I promise, moving forward, it'll be cleaner. Or maybe it won't be. Maybe you guys will love this. But enough about me and the ridiculousness that is happening in my life right now. Let's get to the point. Now, today's topic is about medication. And before you hit that little X to exit out of this video, hear me out. This topic is actually inspired by a conversation I recently had with my neighbor. She had come to me. She had been out of the house for the first time in a couple weeks. Unfortunately, she actually had lost her husband to COVID a little over a year ago. So things have been really difficult, and there's other stuff, of course, that are piling on. She's an absolutely wonderful woman with a wonderful family, and I am so thankful. Growing up, my mom had the absolute best neighbors. So when I moved out of the house, I was like, oh my goodness, I hope I have those kind of neighbors, and I certainly do. But I had seen her. She was out with her son. They had just taken the cats to the vet, and I was like, oh, you look good. She was like, I've been out of the house 3 times this week, and that's big. And I made a joke. I was like, oh, and it looks like you showered. And I can say that because I've been there, right? The times where you're like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed. You haven't showered for days, and you're sort of gross. And the first effort that you make into getting back into your life and any routine you have is really huge. So to anybody that's doing that right now, congratulations. And if you're not at that point yet, do not worry, you will get there. But not to get off topic, she had said that she had made a doctor's appointment to her primary care physician, and that she had spoken to them about the depression and any of the medications, and that her current medication wasn't working. So I had asked her what she was on. We had that discussion, and I suggested a medication to her. And I am not on this video going to use any medication names because I am of the belief, and most people are, that what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you, and what works for you isn't necessarily going to work for me. So I don't want to put any names out there where people think, okay, well, if this worked for Jeanette, it's going to work for me. So My apologies for that. If you do want to have a separate conversation, feel free to communicate with me directly, and we can definitely talk about it. But I had said to my neighbor, oh, I have had a lot of experience with this particular medication. Have you tried it? And she said to me, yes, it was wonderful. It worked for me. And I had heard that about this medication for myself and a lot of people in my life, that this one, out of all the other ones I've heard of, has really been successful. So I said to her, well, how long has it been since you've been on it? And she said 10 years. And I was like, oh my goodness. I said, listen, go back to your doctor and ask if you can give it another shot. Because my experience, and again, it's not maybe yours, but just so you understand this, my experience has been that I can be on a medication for about 2 years. It could work wonderfully. And then one moment I wake up and I'm like, oh, this definitely isn't working as much as it should be anymore. And unfortunately, I let it go a little too long, to the point of probably a mental breakdown, where I go to the doctor and get a new medication. But I'm working on that. I swear I'm working on that. But then a few years go by, I go back on it and it works again. So if there is a medication for you that has worked in the past and you've been off it for a few years, please go to your doctor, see if that is still an option, and give it another try. But then this whole conversation with my neighbor got me thinking about medication in general, right? I started medication, I believe, when I was going to my freshman year of college, so that summer. My brother had passed away my sophomore year of high school. My father had passed away my senior year of high school. So that was a lot in a small period of time. And then on top of that, I was going away from my home to college. So I was put on medication, and I will be the first to admit, when I first was prescribed the medication, I did not take it appropriately. I did not take it daily. I would take it if I remembered, here and there, whatever. I didn't start taking it daily until probably my sophomore year of college, where I started to take it the way that it was prescribed. And unfortunately, you know how on those commercials, on all of mental illness medications, they're like, please contact your prescriber if you're feeling more suicidal or more depressed. Unfortunately, I did not do that, and that is when I had my first suicide attempt. Again, not going into the details of that because this conversation is about medication, but I did want to bring that up because I want you, anybody that's listening, to understand that if you start having those feelings when you are prescribed a new medication, please, 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 please call your doctor, call your friend, call your mom, and make a change to that, because it is very serious. And I know I laugh at all those medication commercials where it's like the little sad ball rolling around. Like, I'm not a sad ball rolling around in my life. Who allowed this commercial to get passed by? And I can say that because I worked in pharmaceutical advertising, and the littlest details that they would not let get through have somehow gone through on mental illness commercials, and I'm a little confused by it. Maybe I should talk to somebody about it. I don't know. But back to medication. I have since had experiences with that work wonders, right? I find a medication and I'm feeling so great about myself. But then the years go by, you start seeing that it wears off. And I think the best word to describe that is frustrating. And I know you've all felt it. I know, because you go from being at a very low point to being on this medication and feeling like yourself again, or like you can live, and like things aren't so difficult, and it's not so difficult to get out of bed until one day you wake up and it is, right? And you start going back into that depressive state that I like to call it a funk. You get into that funk, and it's not an easy thing to get out of, because you have to go back to the doctor and you have to discuss how you're feeling, and it's a trial and error basis from that point on. Oh, this medication hadn't worked for you. Oh, there's this new medication. And from that point on, You have to wean off of the old medication, and please, 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 please do that. No matter what the situation is, never ever quit cold turkey on a depression medication or a bipolar, any kind of mental illness medication. Do not quit cold turkey. I know I said I'm not a doctor, but that is one thing I am certain of. So please, 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 please do not do that. And I'm saying so many pleases because it is that important. I have had to do it due to insurance issues and not being able to afford my medication, and it feels terrible. You get these brain zaps and you get sick. They've actually done studies where they compare it to actual drug withdrawal. I've never been in that experience, so I can't say that's for certain, but from what I felt like, it felt awful. I was sick and throwing up and stomach issues, and of course those brain zaps. And I know as soon as I say brain zaps, anybody that knows about them is like, oh, I hate those things. So please never quit cold turkey. But back to how frustrating it is. It is super frustrating. You have to go to the doctor, like I was saying, and it's basically trial and error. Is this going to work for you? And it's not immediate. Right? So you have to you have to wean off the other medication. So while you're weaning off that other medication, you're feeling awful. Not just physically, but mentally. You're back to that state of just pure sadness. And it's terrible, and it takes a lot to make it through that phase. Because then you have to start the new medication. And that new medication, they tell you, probably isn't going to show if it's working or not for a few months. So then there's a waiting period. The reason I'm going through this, and I know maybe you all know this, but it's not something that I've ever been able to talk about with people that haven't experienced it, because they just don't understand the entire process. And there have been times where I have, during the period of knowing that my current medication isn't working to the period that I have to get a new one, have held off and been like, why do I have to work so hard to be happy, right? And I'm not talking euphoric. I am talking just being able to get out of bed and not crying at the sight of everything, or to enjoy the things that I used to. Why do I have to work so hard? Why do I have to rely on medication? And I'm not saying no, I am saying I'm sad that I have to rely on medication. I'm not going to lie. Am I ashamed that I have to rely on medication, and will I stop? No. But the fact that I have to go through this entire process every few years, if I'm lucky every few years, is just incredibly, incredibly frustrating. And I'm here to tell you that if you felt that, I get it. I get it 100%, but I am also here to tell you that it's worth it. And part of the reason I'm saying this is maybe selfishly I'm recording this video, because I am currently at the point where I am feeling like my medication isn't working and I need to go back to the doctor, and I need to do some more trial and error to see what we can do. And when I said this to my husband was like, wow, well, I'm proud of you to come to me with this earlier than, and this is not an exaggeration with what he said, than hysterically crying in the bathtub into your bubbles. Because that's usually how it goes, and I usually get to the point where I'm like, why do I have to keep doing this? Like, at one point I'm just not going to want to do it anymore. But the reality is, every time I do it, and every time you're going to do it too. So here is the deal. This is my lesson for this week. If you're on medication, take it appropriately. If your medication doesn't seem to be working or is giving you suicidal thoughts, please do not wait, and please go to your doctor. If you are wondering if medication is right for you, have those conversations. I understand that a lot of people are judgmental about it, but the reality is, are people judgmental when someone has to take medication for cancer? Is someone judgmental when people have to take medication for blood pressure? No, it's not. And again, part of understanding that is getting rid of the stigma around mental illness. And I think I was on number 4, maybe number 5. I don't know what it is. If you want to talk about specific medications or specific feelings you're going through, you can definitely comment below, or if you would prefer to be anonymous, I do have an email address at honestmentalhealth@gmail.com, honestmentalhealth@gmail.com, and I will put it down in the description of this video so that you can reach out to me directly. Again, I won't give medical advice, but I can sort of explain what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, what's worked for other people. So, with that being said, this video, this messy and rambling video is complete, but hopefully it is out there to help somebody. And at this point, this background, these lights, definitely not going to make me an influencer, but if I influence at least one person that's watching this video to take better care of themselves and their mental health, or to have them reach out to me and we can have a discussion about it, then I've considered this a success. So, it is Tuesday here in good old New Jersey. I hope you all have an amazing week, and I will see you next week with some other topic that won't be pretty, but it will be important. All right? Bye, guys.